Sunday morning, the Gyogyito clinic in Beijing is a hive of activity. The Chinese go to the doctors at the weekend, outside their working hours. There's no such thing as an appointment. Anyone who feels unwell just turns up and pays for the treatment out of their own pocket. The waiting room. One way of killing time is to watch other patients being treated, because the doors are always open. Concepts like medical confidentiality and private sphere are unknown in China. On the contrary, the whole waiting room likes to pass an opinion. Dr. Zhang's patient suffers from headaches and insomnia. She's going through the menopause, she says, and doesn't feel well. While Dr. Zhang is talking to her, she feels the woman's pulse. It's not the rate that's important, but the rhythm. Chinese medicine distinguishes between 32 different types of pulse, including bouncing, slippery, and choppy.
Western doctors rely on technical findings like X-rays and cardiograms. We use our natural senses. We observe, listen, touch and smell. Western physicians regard a cold, for instance, as inflammation. We, however, talk of excess heat, of the body's balance being disturbed.
Dr. Zhang decides that acupuncture is called for. For thousands of years now, the Chinese have used needles to stimulate nerves at certain points. The aim is to activate the flow of energy, which, according to Chinese theory, courses through the body like electricity through a computer.
The vital energy of life is something we're born with. It flows through the body along 14 meridians. From 40 onwards, however, this energy becomes depleted. Then we have to recreate it ourselves through exercise and sleep and through our diet. By bolstering Mrs. Gao's qi, we will also combat the cause of her complaints.
Dr. Zhang believes acupuncture is superior to Western medication because it tackles the cause of a complaint, has no side effects, and acts swiftly. Every now and then, she twists the needles to intensify the stimulus even more.
It tingles a bit, but it doesn't really hurt, and besides, the needles for the head are smaller than those for the body. After acupuncture, I feel a lot better. I am convinced it has a deeper effect than medication.
For the more than 1 billion Chinese, early morning sport is an integral part of everyday life. In this way, all elderly Chinese recharge their batteries with qi, the life energy. Irrespective of whether the music is Western or from the Far East, according to Chinese theory, the harmony of the movements promotes a person's inner and outer equilibrium. Mr. Zheng and his wife, Dai Yun, perform Tai Chi every day. In this way, they too stay healthy. And preventing illness is paramount, simply because a spell in hospital can consume a whole year's income. The two pensioners live in Shenzhen on China's south coast. It was here 30 years ago that China launched its economic reforms. Drawn by the boom in the Shenzhen Special Economic Zone, the Zhengs came here from the countryside. Once a little fishing village, within a few years, Shenzhen had developed into a glittering metropolis. Today it's home to 14 million people. It's only the food that hasn't changed. Master Chef Li tells us that his speciality, health soups, is as old as Cantonese cuisine itself, and he makes every conceivable variety.
Duck soup here is good for the lungs. It provides them with moisture. This soup strengthens the immune system. Here we have a fish soup made with wild herbs. It's very good for the skin, and this is another kind of fish soup made with fruit. It removes heat from the body and detoxifies it.
The Zhengs come from the mountains of Canton province. In Shenzhen, they have achieved modest prosperity. Yet, even though life in the hill villages now seems so remote, the Zhengs still prepare their food in line with ancient recipes. Lunch always includes a health soup. Mrs. Zheng learnt the recipe from her mother when she was still a young farm girl. At home, she has a store of dozens of different herbs, all from the mountains around her home village. Each herb has a specific effect.
This herb is called shui feng jing, which means bleeding bark because it's cut from a tree, bled and dried. It stabilizes the pulse, stimulates the circulation and reduces the cholesterol level. This is Wuzi Mao Tao. It cures inflammation and detoxifies the body. Our family love health soups. We have remained faithful to this tradition, even though the herbs aren't cheap, especially those that grow high up in the mountains.
Wild mushroom soup with beef. It has to simmer for 4 hours.
We have special winter soups to combat colds, and on hot days like today we drink this soup to reduce body heat.
Daughter-in-law Wang Yumei knows the recipes and will pass them on to her daughter. The Chinese regard food as medicine. Each dish is either yin or yang. In other words, it supplies the body with either cool and cold or hot and warm energy. If the body's balance becomes disturbed, we fall ill and need to change our eating habits.
My favourite soup is fu ling, a summer soup that cools the blood. It's good for the skin and repels mosquitoes. I come from Hunan province, so it was only here that I became familiar with health soups. They're great.
In the evening, it's off to the fitness park. Every settlement has one. The equipment is used mainly by pensioners like the Zhengs. So it's no surprise that the Chinese should have a reputation for attaining a particularly ripe old age in the best of health.
We all love doing exercises on the equipment. They're good for us and keep us young. And being pensioners, we have the time to exercise for half an hour every evening.
Located in the eastern foothills of the Himalayas is Lijiang, the ancient capital of the Nashi minority. The alleyways of the old town are a must for any visitor to China, if only because of Lijiang's 1,000-year-old architecture, which has been preserved almost in its entirety. Dr. Ho has lived here for 86 years. A legend in his own lifetime, this mountain physician enjoys his reputation. Every morning, he displays framed articles outside his door, stories about him penned by travel writers and journalists from the West. The oldest articles date back more than 60 years. The first patients are already waiting. Mountain villagers, like Dr. Ho, they all belong to the Nashi ethnic minority. Ho comes from a distinguished family. His father was a doctor, like his father before him. After completing his studies, Ho settled in his home village on the outskirts of Lijiang. Mrs. Yu, who's also well into her 80s, has known Dr. Ho since childhood. She once came to him suffering from terrible stomachache, but he managed to cure the problem with herbs. Today, she complains that she can't sleep. Dr. Ho takes his time. Thorough examination.
I'm going to prescribe a herbal compound. It will stimulate her circulation, strengthen her qi, her life energy, and relax her muscles. A remedy, therefore, that will improve her condition overall. Some patients ask me for sleeping tablets, but I refuse to prescribe them. Good circulation is much healthier and ensures a good night's sleep.
At the back of the treatment room, there's a pile of buckets. Dr. Ho places his faith almost entirely in the heat growing in the mountains around Lijiang. His collection might look chaotic, but he has studied every compound in great detail.
Naturally, I can't treat every complaint. Herbs are no use where bacterial inflammation is involved. That calls for antibiotics. When I was a boy, penicillin was still unknown. Back then, patients died every day who would have survived today.
Only if the composition is exactly right, Dr. Ho says, will the various ingredients develop their full healing effect.
The mountains here are over 5,000 meters high and blessed with an abundance of herbs. That is why we Nashi also call the mountains the plant kingdom. I have never ceased studying the effect they have, and I'm still learning things even today.
Dr. Ho proudly tells us that he also sends his compounds to patients in Europe and America, whom he treated here. News of the healing skills of the mountain doctor from southern China has spread far and wide. Even his home village of Baishan profits from the doctor's fame, because his practice attracts tourists, and their visits are already a source of income for many a villager. A few streets away, the mountain doctor's son ensures stocks are replenished. He chops up basket after basket of the precious raw material which he gathers in the mountains during the summer months. With Dr. Ho's grandson studying medicine in Beijing, the survival of the Ho herbal dynasty is ensured for the next 2 generations.
This is my garden of 100 herbs, which I brought here from the mountains. I try to obtain seeds so that I can grow them in large quantities. This herb, for example, is the black lily turf. It's a source of qi, the life energy. This plant is banlangen, or Radix isotidis. It reduces fever and curbs inflammation. And this is the Moriah tree. It regulates the flow of qi and helps cure many complaints.
By now, the patients waiting uncomplainingly at the Gyogyito clinic in Beijing are also well acquainted with Mr. Yu's problem. What at first glance looks so relaxed can prove really painful, because Dr. Zhang keeps exerting pressure on the same pain points. Her patient remains fully clothed. This stops the skin becoming irritated. and enables Dr. Zhang to reach deeper layers of tissue.
Elbow pressing is only one of many techniques. We treat the shoulders with a pressure and the back with a rolling technique. In general, massage improves the flow of qi, the life energy. It boosts the circulation and thus enables the liver and the kidneys to function better.
Mr. Yu is a teacher. Spending a lot of time in front of a computer has given him back problems. His hands are already completely numb.
Dr. Zhang says that my vertebral disorder stems from the stiff posture I adopt when I'm sitting at the computer. I've tried Western forms of treatment, like injections, but the relief they provided was only short-lived. Now, I hope Chinese medicine will get to the root of the problem.
Getting a sweat on in the middle of the Beijing winter. Hot yoga at a temperature of 42 degrees. Wang Mei comes 3 times a week. Like most of the group, this young IT specialist wants to lose weight. At the moment, hot yoga is regarded literally as a hot tip. If you want to look good, you have to suffer. We wondered why Wang Mei, of all people, needed to subject herself to this treatment. But like many young Chinese women, she too has been bitten by the slimming bug. Even the tea drunk in the break is part of the program.
It's pu'er tea from Yunnan province. It detoxifies, stimulates the digestive system and helps you lose weight. If I have to drink a lot during the session, I drink this tea.
Here, in the mountains and the far south of China, near the border with Burma, is where pu'er tea is grown. The He family have lived from growing tea for many generations, and this young woman has just married into it. Yin belongs to the Yi, one of nearly 30 ethnic minorities that live in Yunnan province. Yin's Chinese father-in-law says it was the Yi who taught his forefathers how to grow tea.
My ancestors, who make the land arable and planted the first bushes, were unable to harvest tea themselves, because in those days it took 3 generations for a tea bush to mature. The leaves have to be plucked with great care. Only the young shoots in the top part make good tea. The leaves further down have to be left to grow. Affected leaves have to be removed to keep the bush healthy.
Tea as far as the eye can see. This plantation in Yunnan province is thought to be the biggest in the world. It's still run by the state. The managers are Han Chinese, while the pickers belong to the Yi and Miao ethnic minorities. Seasonal workers who, on a good day, can earn the equivalent of €3. RD is still light enough to be able to climb. The tree the Miao youth is harvesting is over 300 years old. Connoisseurs pay the He's incredibly high prices for this type of tea. With the day's work done, the family heads for home. Nowhere in China are the villages as beautiful as in Yunnan. The freshly picked tea leaves now have to be dried. While Yin is working up on the roof, in the kitchen her mother-in-law is processing the previous day's harvest. Pu'er tea comes from the same varieties as green or black tea. The difference lies in the way it's processed.
I've just started baking the leaves. The baking heat is crucial in producing pu'er tea. It's higher than in the case of green tea, about 110 degrees. At that temperature, the leaves lose their greenness. That's how the special aroma of pu'er tea is obtained.
After being baked, the tea is dried once again, for at least 10 hours, and then turned into a cake ready for sale. Each can contains one portion. He Tianing now steams the leaves in a can. Immediately afterwards, the warm, moist leaves are inverted into a cloth bag, which he then has to dry once again and also compress. A few hours later, the pu'er cake is ready.
This is what the tea that's found in shops looks like. Like cognac or wine, it can be consumed straight away or stored for many years. A cake like this costs 68 yuan. That's about €7.
Sampling the produce after all the hard work. It's debatable whether pu'er tea really does help people lose weight. But since many Chinese believe it does, they pay a lot of money for it. Pu'er tea has proved highly profitable for the Heis, so naturally they swear by it. And so does Wang Mei, 2,000 kilometers away in Beijing. The beauty industry in China is booming. And anyone who can shell out the equivalent of €1,000 for a hot yoga course can also afford the digestive tea with the trendy slimming image.
The tea was recommended to me by friends. I've been drinking it now for 2 years, and I find that it really does work. In the evening, after a fatty meal, you get the feeling that the tea flushes out the body's waste.
If the needles don't help, Dr. Zhang says, I can still use my moxa boxes. With moxibustion, cigar-like herbal sticks are burnt on the acupuncture needles, because heat and mugwort intensify the effect of the needles.
We apply this form of treatment mainly for back pain and rheumatism. This patient, for example, is a truck driver, so he spends day after day behind the wheel in a faulty posture. But with this technique, we can combat his back problems.
The principle is very simple. When the needles in the small box get hot, the nerve stimulus is intensified.
In the past, I also tried Western forms of treatment. That brought temporary relief, but the pain kept coming back. Since I've been treated with this method, I've been practically pain-free.
Meanwhile, the herbal pharmacy is still a hive of activity, as the 20 pharmacists at the Gyogyito clinic work flat out to prepare the compounds their customers need. And they purchase their cures by the kilo, health shopping at the weekend. Watching this scene, it becomes clear why it is not acupuncture that is regarded as the core of traditional Chinese medicine, but the healing power of herbs.
There are more than 1,000 different herbal compounds in Chinese medicine. We stock around 700. The effect of each individual herb is limited. Only when the mix is just right do they develop their full healing power.
Even today, most Chinese still have faith in the healing effect of herbs and needles. And that is affordable, an important factor in a country in which only a few have the money to pay for Western medical treatment. One more reason to remain faithful to traditional Chinese medicine in the future too.